I was doing some really good skiing. It was so great, feeling the wind, you know, and oh yeah, being able to just, you know, fly was wonderful. That was like 19 years old, pretty stupid, testosterone, feeling pretty invincible.
Been up here before. I've hiked up here when I was in my past life, when walking was part of my past life and I could hike.
I love to be outdoors. I think life is extremely valuable and that it's precious to me. And you have to make it precious. You have to make it special in everything you do.
I grew up in a small town in Nova Scotia, and for weekends we would actually go into the bush for fishing trips and that sort of thing, and all those memories of my father and my mother and, you know, taking us as children out into this land and just enjoying nature. I haven't done this in years.
Day one, 8 a.m.
The atmosphere is electric, really upbeat.
It's going to take determination. It's going to take persistence. It's the first time it's been done.
6 teams.
3 days.
60 kilometers.
Not a race.
But a challenge.
I want to go climb a mountain. I mean, this is unbelievable, right?
The whole situation is just amazing. I mean, the contraption is amazing. And the fact that you can find 4 people that are willing to volunteer to take you over this, the whole thing is amazing to me.
It looks like it's going to be tough assembling this trail rider. People are nervous, but really looking forward to what awaits us. I'm not feeling that healthy, mind you, but hey, it's not every day you get a chance to do something like this, so I think we're ready. I can't tell till you lean me back.
You can't what?
I can't tell the headrest till you lean me back.
At first he told me about this great trip, and he didn't really say that there's going to be very much work involved. He was saying more, it's a chance to see nature and all this stuff, and I'm sure you would love to go out in the woods and do all these things, and I've been looking forward to this. And then he started to bring in more and more about how much work it would be. Like I'd be pushing this contraption with him in it through the woods, but he didn't say that until the very end. And then he said, I think you should start training. And I was like, oh, what do you mean?
Okay, we're ready. Talk to me, Obi. How is it?
Check your radio from here.
If one of us has trouble way out in the middle of nowhere, I know it's going to be very difficult to get us out of that trouble. Oh, it's great the way it is.
How's that angle? That's good. That's good.
I'm feeling pretty excited, and now I'm realizing it's a lot easier to dream up the idea than to do it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, I find being in the wilderness to be quite a mystical, kind of a spiritual experience. And it really connects me to something bigger than myself, and it helps me put my own problems into perspective. It was really beautiful being in the wilderness. It was wonderful. I remember before my injury, I was canoeing around the Bowen Lakes, and I looked up into the mountains and I said, I promised myself that I will return. And since my injury, all of those promises had been forgotten. I then remembered a promise I made to myself, and I started to figure out ways to get out in the forest again. What I needed was a technological fix.
Even this part,
I needed something to get me physically into the forest.
always put here one bar with extension. One day he called me for lunch and he put a few lines on a napkin and it was looking like a Chinese rickshaw, and he said that's what he wanted to have for going to some kind of forest experience. I asked, when do you want to eat have? And he said, oh, next week I wanted to go for trying it.
Within a week, he had built the first prototype of the Trail Rider. I went out, and it was amazing getting out to the places that I got to with that vehicle.
This is Team Uhuru.
Who?
Uhuru. Yeah. Uhuru means freedom in Swahili. So we came up with some freedom. Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2,
Uhuru. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, you're starting out bad.
Like that already. Okay.
To be perfectly honest, I feel pretty sick. But I'm overjoyed that we're doing this. It's definitely worth it.
Go back. Over here.
We have 5 girls, and we all babied him. He was our little doll. We were a large family, and we stuck together. And it really was wonderful, even though we were from a poor family. We would go swimming pretty well every day at the river. We would go fishing. We would do all sorts of things outside.
You have to get it out of everybody's pack to put it in the bear bag to hang it.
Unpack your pack every night.
Yes, I remember that, but it was years ago. I haven't done that for a long time.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And we're off. Bye now. Look at these trees with the new growth on them.
I love to be outdoors. It was a big part of my early marriage and with my children. I did hiking then and canoeing. But you don't know what tomorrow brings for you. You just never know. I was going to be a nurse from the time I was 5 years old. If I physically could get up and walk now, I'd be at the bedside. And I did work with the terminally ill for a long time. I think life is extremely valuable and that there's no guarantees that there will be a tomorrow for any of us.
Day 1, 10 a.m.
Freedom. I feel freedom that I didn't ever anticipate that I would feel again.
Chilly. I can feel a few drops of rain.
Glad we decided to go for it. You know, just being out here is making me forget that I've got this bladder infection. It's awesome.
I really think that the sun is going to come out and bless us.
Sam had a passion for life. He just loved everything. Loved to get up in the morning. Loved to get ready. Loved to do whatever he was doing. He really got into his music. He really enjoyed playing. You didn't have to tell Sam to go and practice.
One of my favorite things to do was to just sit at the piano for hours, just play. It's beautiful.
He bought himself an organ when he was in high school, and he was paying for that himself. And he was playing gigs in restaurants, private parties, and stuff like that.
When he was playing with the band, he just enjoyed it so much. And so then he decided he was going to take some more lessons. And so I think he had one lesson, and then he had his accident.
That's pretty comfy, man.
This is the life. I mean, this is not how I remember hiking and camping and roughing it, you know?
Not how I remember either.
Yeah, right.
You gotta bring a Mickey or something.
You think so?
Maybe a little flask.
Except I can't drink scotch.
Oh, you can't.
No. Hi.
One more.
Oh.
What are you hitting?
You're hitting the roof. Roof goes right to the step.
Okay, ready, Iris?
One.
Here we go. Let's go.
Okay, now you're gonna. I don't know what to do here. What do you want to do here?
We were beginning to understand team dynamics.
Huh? You got no choice, log by log.
We were having to depend on each other. And it's been amazing to see how close a group of people can come in such a short period of time.
Okay, here we go. And ready? Here we go. One more. We got it. No problem. Hey, all right.
No team really ever goes to the top based on just one player.
They'd like to work it underneath the Jones if they could. There it is, underneath the Jones, up and in.
With a kid like Roger Jones in there, the more often that ball goes up in the air, the more often he's going to get it off the boards for you.
I found that basketball it's almost like an art form because, you know, you're not just running in a straight line. You have so many different skills. There's the running, there's the jumping, there's the conditioning, there's the teamwork.
10-point lead for Cobequid. There's no way that they can lose it unless they walk off the floor.
They can walk off the floor and they can't lose it now.
There it is. Provincial champions for 1978. How many did Jones come up with, Ian?
He had 14 points.
I was a star basketball player in high school. I won the Nova Scotia Most Valuable Player in the province. And so I was recruited quite heavily for college, and when I arrived at college, you know, the word was already out. And, you know, I was in good shape and tall and all this kind of stuff. And the young women just went crazy, and I wasn't used to this. I was too naive, I think, to understand the dynamics of girls. You know, that was so when I went to university, it was really an eye-opener. And I thought, oh man, what did I miss in high school, you know?
As a sister, I felt that there were many girls who just basically wanted to be around this handsome guy, more so than, you know, spend quality time. He just loved the excitement, but his whole thing was, from what I could see, was the enjoyment of the game.
There's just so many aspects of the game that I enjoyed. To be able to dunk a basketball is a feeling like no other. To be able to just, you feel the energy as you soar, and you know that not too many other people can do this. And then you're looking down in the rim and you're slamming the basketball. There's nothing else like that. I said something really stupid. I knew I was tired. My friend had also, I think, worked a double shift that day, and he was driving his car, and I said, if you fall asleep wake me up and I'll drive. So unfortunately, he did fall asleep. I remember getting really, really cold, and it was really painful. It was pain. I can't describe the pain.
He's leaning that way? Okay, you're okay. Oh, then. That's it.
When we arrived at the hospital, they were telling us that Roger probably wouldn't survive, that people with all of these injuries rarely do. You know, they were telling us all these things, and we said, no, sorry, this is Roger, and that's not going to happen. He's going to live, and we're going to be here for him. So we camped ourselves at the hospital for, very, very long time.
For me, time was not hours, days, it was seconds, minutes. I would look at the clock and count seconds, you know, because of the pain that I was going through. If I had been able to commit suicide or something physically when I was lying there, totally paralyzed, I may well have done it. You know, I wasn't able to do it. And at some point, the pain gets to be so bad that you can't think anyway. I mean, you just have pain, you pass out, you wake up. But from somewhere inside, something got me to the next level, and I was able to deal with it. But it took some time.
We're going to experience what it's like to be at, 8,000 feet, 10,000 feet. We're going to make it. We're going to make it. I was a runner when I was a young adult. I'd been running 3 or 4 times a week for probably 12 or 15 years. I'd run the Vancouver Marathon just before I was diagnosed, and I was diagnosed with almost no symptoms. I remember getting the diagnosis in the doctor's office, and I remember getting myself in the car and driving home with tears just streaming down my cheeks. I was a basket case because I had worked with clients and patients with MS, and I knew what kind of devastation it could create in one's life. Because I had only worked with the worst, I didn't know people with MS who continued to work, who continued to function, who continued to live life. When I was diagnosed, I had children who were young adolescents, and it was really important to me to be able to be there for them, and fortunately I was able to do that when they were younger.
She was still running and hiking, and there was nothing readily apparent to anybody that would have indicated she was having any problems. It was a slow progression, ebbs and flows a bit, and sort of has worked its way steadily to the point she's at now.
My attitude is that it is not inevitable that I will be totally debilitated. It is not inevitable that I won't be able to function. There are moments when it's terribly frightening and scary, and then you kind of have to put it aside and think, just forget it, and then get your bod up, get into that swimsuit, get in the pool, and get moving with life. I had always dreamed of walking on the Great Wall of China. I was walking at the time, I was walking with a cane, and I knew that if I didn't go soon, I wouldn't be able to. So I spent a whole weekend at home just thinking about life. And Monday morning, I booked myself a plane ticket to Beijing, and I walked on the Great Wall of China. And so after that, I did other things. I went to Greece and Turkey. I went to North and South Ireland, Scotland and Wales, the Isle of Skye, roamed around London, and Australia, New Zealand, Tahiti, and Fiji, Costa Rica, Alaska, the Sierra Nevada Mexico, Desert, Egypt, Africa, Kenya, Oaxaca, and Puerto Escondido. If you want to see the world, you have to take risks to do that. You know, it's one thing to be a woman traveling alone. It's quite another thing to be a woman in a wheelchair traveling alone. I can't wheel myself up huge hills. I just can't do that. You have to be comfortable enough with saying to somebody, excuse me, would you mind giving me a push to the next corner? Because there are times that there are places that I just can't cope with on my own. And so you just have to put your faith in humanity. One day I may get burned. I haven't yet.
Day 1, 12 p.m.
We're falling into a groove. I think my team is keen, and I'm really lucky in that they are keen to try this out and to go for it.
We've just gone through some pretty doable terrain, and now we're really starting to move into some pretty treacherous stuff. I would do some amazing falls. And my friends would wonder if I was going to be alive, you know. And I would just get up and no problem and ski away. You know, and I thought, for sure I'll break something, and I thought it would be like an arm or a leg, you know. I heard my neck crack, and I felt my body disconnect from my brain. Felt like my body had expanded really to about the size of the universe, and then it had sucked in like a, you know, a collapsing star, and it just come right back into a fetal position. And yet when I opened my eyes, I saw my hand way up above my head.
I did have hope after Sam's accident. I really did not believe that God would leave him that way. Of course, what we saw at first was a very helpless young man, not able to do anything. As my husband said, he couldn't even wipe away his own tears.
When the kids were growing up, they'd scrape their knee or something like that, you know, and you could always kiss it better, maybe, or something like that. But this time it was for keeps, you know.
I would go to the hospital. I cried all the way up there, and Sam was incredible. His attitude, and so we laughed and talked and joked. Get in the car, head home, cry all the way home.
I did say to myself, wow, this is great. You know, I've never broke my neck before. I've never experienced this, you know, and here I am getting to experience from, you know, first-person point of view. And I did carry on that way, and I wanted to sort of go through it and see what was this like, you know? Would I actually need someone to look after me? Or would I be able to do it on my own? When I got into bed by myself, it was a huge moment for me.
He wanted us to come and watch him transfer from his wheelchair to his bed. He was very proud. it was actually very painful to watch. And we, from the heart, did not share in his enthusiasm for his new ability because it was so painful to watch him do something that takes you a second to do, which he could have done in a second a year or so ago.
It was only after a few years when I said, yeah, okay, I've done that, been there. I think I'd like to go back to my other life. And that was, of course, not possible.
Day 1, 1 p.m.
Mud.
Blisters.
Mud is everywhere.
Everybody's getting blisters. Trail rider is an awesome machine. I don't think that there is any other device that will be capable of doing what we're doing right now. On the other hand, the trail rider probably could use some adaptations in order to make it really suitable for someone of my stature. Somebody who weighs over 200 pounds.
Myself, every time I think of Roger's accident, I think, I could never do what he did.
When you have a spinal cord injury, you don't have balance. So my first challenge was to actually sit up in a wheelchair. So they would, sit me up for 2 or 3 minutes and I'd pass out or fall down, get dizzy, and then they'd put back in the chair and they'd fall down again. And that was a huge challenge. There is a chance that you can regain certain things and you can work on strength and that. I have the use of my bicep muscles, but I don't have any tricep muscles. I couldn't raise my arm as high as my mouth. That was a big challenge, was to be able to build up enough strength to actually be able to somehow use a device to hold a fork. When you go through that rehab process, it's almost like people see you at your worst. They see you in pain, they see you struggling. There were days when I, didn't want to get up or deal with this whole thing, and someone else had to prod me.
Whenever there was any sort of phase where he was a little bit negative, to me, it seemed like that's natural, that's good. Because, you need the lows to make it, to get to all of those highs.
$2 p.m. We made it into the Alpine valleys. Incredible.
It's getting really nasty. The weather is extremely bad.
Tarps. So glad we brought the tarps.
Shortly after his accident, he said, I was able to put into music what I couldn't say. The thing is, he couldn't use his fingers. The only thing he could do was sing.
Oh, I'm gonna sing a sad song.
So he composed these songs, and he bought this Porta studio, which allowed him to record himself 4 times. All the voices were his own. He was harmonizing with himself. His harmonizing is not always the best, but that didn't matter.
As my heart so softly cries, and gonna sing it real long. And soon.
He wanted to be independent. If we'd go anywhere, I always wanted to push him, push his wheelchair for him. He wanted to work it himself. He would get mad at me when I did help. And I had a hard time with that because I wanted to help him. But I had to learn that I had to back off and let him be independent.
We were inclined to run and get things for him rather than have him take a half an hour to do something. We would do it. So you can see how it's working towards, if this man was going to be independent, he had to really get away from people who wanted to help him.
We had revamped the house and put on an extension and put in the elevator and sort of got the place fixed up for him so he could be there for the rest of his life. Son of a gun lasted about 2 years and then he took off.
And that was when I went into the crisis. And I knew I was going there, and I knew I had to get out if I was going to deal with it.
We had to let him go, and we did. For years he was depressed, and he wrote several songs while he was going through this particular period. Some of them were pretty sad.
Dark looks restful, the black seems so peaceful. Feel myself wanting to fall.
Well, at that time, I remember thinking, you know, that where am I? I'm on welfare, I'm a quadriplegic. Whatever relationships I do have, I'm too proud to call on. It was like I couldn't imagine a worse place to be in. Eventually got very suicidal, imagining, you know, blowing my head off or something like that, and just sort of really imagining how that would be. And then I remember there was a point where I did do that in a kind of a figurative way, and then imagining what would it be like if I was given a gift of a few more years, you know, with the way I was. And so what essentially happened was I killed the old guy. I killed Sam. And there was, whatever was left over is what you see now. And I was born the day Sam died.
Yeehaw! Woohoo! Okay, so that means the sun should come any minute now.
Terrific. Terrific. Terrific.
I've always put really high expectations on myself, and asking for help was one of the most difficult things that I had to learn.
She's pretty resourceful. She's fairly independent, but she recognizes that sometimes she needs assistance, and she's fairly resourceful about getting it.
Yeah, because I'm just about on my shift. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
MacGyver's making us some...
Nova Scotia spam stew.
Isn't that simulated spam, though?
Oh, no, that's the real stuff. That's the real... Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
We go across that whole patch up there, or do we have that?
I love everything about the game. Speed, skill of the players, excitement, crowds into it, right? Plus I appreciate these guys because I played ball and I can tell how good they are. Yeah. So what's not to love about it? Sometimes I miss being on the court, but if you're 50 and you played high school basketball, you probably miss being out there as well, and maybe you're not doing it anymore. So people sometimes feel uncomfortable if they're doing something physical, which I can't participate in. And people can be over-helpful sometimes, because traditionally, people in my situation need a certain amount of help.
Flowers. Every time you go around a corner, you see new colors and a new display of them. They're really, really neat.
The next presentation will begin in 1 minute. Please take your
flavored mineral water.
I think sometimes people are too quiet. I think sometimes they're not too polite. Children are wonderful because they're so spontaneous and natural.
Hello. Which row are you in today?
And they often ask, why can't you walk? Why do you need that chair? Sometimes the mums say, shh, don't ask that. And there's no reason not to ask.
You get stared at, and people talk and whisper about you and think that you can't hear them. I think that's a difficult point for a lot of people, especially who are recently injured through traumatic accident or something like this. Whereas for me, because I'm black, I've always had that. I've always had people staring at me or whatever. But it can be a very uncomfortable feeling. Everyone assumes that your priority in life is to walk. I forgot about walking many, many, many years ago. I have a long list of things that I would certainly be more interested in doing than walking. Sex is a big thing. And people are curious. And as far as I'm concerned, if I feel like I want to tell them my business, maybe I will. Sexuality is an important part of life.
We had a thing for a while. I guess we were 16 and 17, And when I broke my neck, I thought I would be really a macho man and just say, hey, sweetheart, you go and have your life.
With men, oftentimes they see the chair and not me. That's okay. I think lots of people in the world, they see the chair first because it's very visible and it's right there. Being in a chair is not usually a barrier for men dating people. For women, it's a little bit different. Maybe that's just part of the deal.
I really did feel really strongly about her. Then our stars aligned, and a couple of years ago, I discovered her again. I immediately fell in love.
I took her out for dinner 'cause I thought she was a winner. Name was Mary.
Well, that sounds good.
Our band was called Spinal Cord.
As sexy as Madonna, she was steamy as the sun. We
had 2 quadriplegics and 2 able-bodied players.
She said what?
I did have a computer program written so that I could play the keyboard with whatever parts of my hand I could use and get the notes that I wanted out of it. Yeah, we have a CD. We did a rock video once, but it was pretty embarrassing. And so...
So what's the problem?
She blew a kiss and she started to tease. I felt her hands as it touched to my knees. She said she needed loving, that she'd been through several dozen. I got weary.
Oh, no, we're not going there.
She leaned across the table just to whisper she was able.
We did have a lot going for us, but we didn't have that one critical feature, which is talent.
Been through this trip before, I won't be hang around no more. So long, Mary.
Well, that's progress.
3 p.m.
Feeling pretty sick.
It's gone from chilly to cold.
If we can just keep pushing, I think we'll make it to the base camp before dark.
Heard on the radio that we're not the only ones having difficulties.
Guys, something's rubbing, so take a breather.
It's a long shot.
What do you think, Gina?
We put this in across.
Well, let's
you know,
stabilize it.
To stabilize it more so that won't hit.
We do have that little wrench that we can clip on there.
Yeah, the rock. It's a long shot.
All right, slow and steady, you guys.
Hang up. Up, big bump. Up. Hold it.
Okay.
You have to learn to adapt and do things maybe differently, but you can still do them. Even after I was in a wheelchair, I continued to work full-time, and I still work full-time.
Good morning, Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services.
Retirement is something that we dream about, but it's not here yet.
I like to be able to participate, you know, to pull my weight. I mean, that's just my personality. I work for federal government. I'm a collections officer with Revenue Canada. I'm a good guy. That's my real job. I do a lot of volunteer work. I'm a workaholic, probably too much sometimes. I usually have 4 or 5 projects on the go at any given time, most of which are, you know, non-profit oriented, but also some business things as well. $4 p.m.
Getting our second wind, feeling strong.
Looks like we will make it all the way to the base camp before dark.
I had a really good friend who was also a quadriplegic, and we came through rehab together. She wasn't able to go out and do any of this kind of stuff, and you know, she just passed away recently. We were very close, and this is, I know that she would have appreciated something like this. And so, Susan, I was thinking about Susan when I was up there. When I heard about AccessChallenge, you know, that's part of the reason why I wanted to do it. She never got the opportunity. And I know that she would have wanted me to be out here doing this sort of thing. Too far from camp, too sick to go on. The team voted. We're turning back. Hope to get out before dark. That's the end of it.
Councillor Bass? Councillor Clark? Councillor Kennedy?
I know that in order to get access and disability issues higher on the agenda, disabled people have to be more involved. Day 2, 8 a.m. Everything is soaked. The only other team to make it to base camp is Linda's.
The team wants to keep going.
Roger's team turned back,
but conditions haven't improved.
The others scattered all along the trail.
Everybody is turning around.
No choice but to retrace our steps, head down, disappointed.
Councillor Price has put forward a notice of motion, third crossing initiative.
The main reason I ran for city council was it was something that could be really a part of what I was doing already. You know, I was involved in community building, and it seemed like an opportunity to do some more. The reason I originally got involved in community stuff was totally selfish. I wanted to go sailing, but there was no way to go sailing. There was no facilities that existed, no services to support that whole activity. So I had to create the whole thing. It gives me the same kind of rush as skiing. I'm in control, it's individual. I get the wind and the beauty of the earth. I got good incisors and good molars. Most of the things that I've done started from a personal need. I couldn't get that need met. And I'm realizing I have to actually make the whole structure up that would support me. Lying in my sleeping bag, hearing the drops of water that were falling on me, I thought, this really hasn't turned out to be anything like I had hoped. And I started to think about, well, what am I doing here? And why is everybody else here?
I was thinking about the pioneers, how they had to help each other out and survive. It was almost like all the barriers, all the disability, all that sort of thing just disappeared. We were just, you know, a bunch of people out in the woods, and that was beautiful.
Just realizing, yeah, I'm way out in the wilderness. This is amazing for me to be here. The fact that I'm here at all is such a gift. Then I started thinking about all the other people that were there, and that we were here together, and I just felt that we were doing well.
The last day I was taking lots of pictures. I said, I have to finish this roll. I have to have lots of pictures. I have to take lots because I'll never be back here again. And my team just responded in unison and said, why not? And I thought after, yeah, why not? I can be back here again, and I will be back here again.
We'll have to make sure that we thank the engineers for making this machine.
Lady in white, in the dark of my night, I say thanks for your words, softly spoken. Lady so kind, how you comfort my mind. Give me peace, though my poor body is broken. Lady in white, in the dark of my night, I say thanks for your words softly spoken. Lady so kind.